Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Goes up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis, left corner.
We're missing out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis. Reddick brings low out away from the basket. Stolen away by Cody Ellis. One man to beat. To the hole. He's fouled. Layup. Good. Whistle foul. Count the basket.
Ellis for the reverse. Through fingertips. What a move. Ellis drops in a bomb.
I love seeing Cody Ellis coming out, feeling good.
Ellis. Cody Ellis. Ellis. Pull-up jumper. Cody Ellis. Bang. Cody Ellis, can he stand and deliver? Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Okay, hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle, a special bonus episode. Saturday night at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre is going to be such a big night for both the Adelaide 36ers and the Perth Wildcats that we thought we just had to do a bonus episode. So I'm Chris Pike, but I'm joined by Cody Ellis, my regular co-host, and also the Adelaide 36ers Hall of Famer Scott Ninnis to chat about it all. Firstly, Cody, how are you holding up this week? And very quick thoughts. What did you make of the two games that we saw last night that we always knew were going to be very important, especially for Adelaide and Perth?
Yeah, doing good, mate. Doing good. And look, it was how we thought it would go. So a couple of big games and, look, a bit better from a couple of the teams. But, yeah, look, still lots need to be changed from some certain positions, unfortunately, for some of them. But, you know, we'll see what happens.
You were spot on about the JackJumpers beating the Wildcats, so we'll chat a bit more about that. But, Scott, how do we find you? And thanks very much for joining us.
Mate, we're very excited here in Adelaide town at the moment. Those dirty Wildcats are coming to town tomorrow night. It's always, you know, that rivalry dates back a long, long time. And, yeah, been on the wrong side of a couple of those losses. Well, a couple of those losses, a lot of those losses over the years. So it's obviously a really important game for both teams. And I guess the 36ers did what they had to do last night and were expected to do. But yeah, obviously there's some alarming signs for the Wildcats, and it should be a cracking game. There's only 1,000 seats left, and that was this morning, so it's going to probably be the biggest crowd the 36ers have ever had in their history. So very exciting.
What did you make of last night from a 36ers point of view, Scott, in the win over the Illawarra Hawks? And I guess we can't ignore the fact that the team looked bloody good without Craig Randall running the show, unfortunately, because Daniel Johnson and Robert Franks, as we talked about on the show this week, Cody, had an absolute field day.
You said that, I didn't say that. So, but I guess what you saw from the 36ers last night was probably more what I expected at the start of the year, that Robert Franks and Daniel Johnson would be the focal points of the offense. And I think that's a really important thing. The ball movement was great. It didn't stick in hands last night. And it seemed to me that they knew what they were trying to do and where the shots were coming from. So it'd be interesting now you throw Randall back into that mix if it upsets the apple cart. But, you know, they're still a work in progress, but it's obviously important to get these wins early on in the season.
Well, let's have a look at Robert Franks and Daniel Johnson. Last night, between them, 53 points, and their shooting was unbelievable. 22 out of 27 from the field, 13 rebounds between them, 8 assists between them. It was an incredibly dominant performance from the two big guys, and I guess it's impossible to avoid the question, would that have happened if Craig Randall was playing?
Well, for starters, you wouldn't think those blokes would pass the ball 8 times between them in a game of basketball, especially DJ. But, well, I don't think it would have happened with Randall because it's a different dynamic. You know, you take your leading scorer out of the team and the shots have to come from somewhere else. So, no, I don't think it would have happened. I think it's probably, as far as long term, I think it's probably a good thing that he missed the game because I think it probably showed them a way forward as to what they need to do and what needs to be the focal points. And Randall needs to integrate into that. And he's obviously too good a scorer, you know, to not get his shots. But what it showed from a ball movement and you know, trying to exploit mismatches, you know, they did a lot of that well. Now, you know, still probably wasn't a game for the ages. And let's face it, Illawarra just aren't very good at the moment either. So, But I think it showed him a way forward, and hopefully once you sort of throw Randall back into the mix, we can find a happy medium there going forward.
What did you make of last night, Cody? And got anything you want to fire towards Scott about how the 36ers are travelling?
Yeah, look, I think Scott nailed it on the head. I think it was certainly an interesting one because, like you saw Franks as the focal point, especially early in the game. It looked like they were trying to go to him every single time down the court. And his little talk with in the interview after was solely around that. They knew that they had a mismatch down there, which was really good to see. And then DJ being DJ again, we didn't think DJ would be held to single digits all season, so that was always bound to happen. But just for you, Scott, do you reckon that with Randall coming back into the lineup now, do you think he kind of sees that and starts to move the ball a bit better?
I guess we'll see, won't we?
Yeah.
They're in a really interesting situation at the moment. Obviously coming off those NBA games where, Randall and Franks, Randall in particular, played so well and obviously, garnered that NBA interest. And the Randall's only young. It's only his second year out of college. And I think, there's obviously going to be those NBA aspirations. Now, to attract that, you've got to be putting the ball in the basket because that's what he's known for. So I just hope that he does let it come to him. And he did that in a couple of the games that we have won. He's looked for others in the first half and penetrated and, passed the ball and got some assists and let the game come to him. And then in the fourth quarter when his opportunity came to shine, he's just taken over. So that Randall, to me, is the one that can make this 36 team very, very dangerous when you've got a guy that in a space of 2 or 3 minutes can basically just win you the game. So I think there certainly are a work in progress. I think there's, when I look at all the teams, around the league, and we've seen a lot of them for a couple of years now, I think Adelaide still have the most room for improvement out of probably just about any team with the talent they've got, and they haven't, there hasn't been, a lot of games where they've played particularly well, but they've still managed to eke out some wins. But once again, they've got to be facing a desperate team tomorrow night, and Perth have just got to start winning games. Let's be honest about that. And we know from history that no matter where these two teams are on the ladder, one could be top, one could be bottom. It's always going to be a 2-point game that normally the 36ers lose. So let's hope that changes tomorrow night. But certainly expecting both these teams don't come out like full of energy as if and treat it like it's their last game. I'd be very surprised.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on them defensively? Because if you look at their roster, I reckon they've got one of the most potent defensive units that any team puts on the floor, but they seem to be struggling to stop people right now. Is that because they've got all that firepower? They just kind of Golden State and just trying to outscore you?
Oh, there's no way addressing that. They've been awful defensively.
Yeah.
Giving up more points than any team in the competition, and that, like you said, that just shouldn't happen. I mean, in Cleveland, you got the reigning defensive player of the year. You've got Sunday Dech, who I couldn't understand how he hasn't been in the top 3 defenders, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And you got Mitch McCarron, who's a tough defender. So you can put 3 guys on the court who probably 3 of the top 6 or 7 defenders in the whole of the competition.
Yeah.
So it has been a little baffling that they haven't been, better defensively, and that is certainly something they're going to address because. You just can't outshoot people every game. And we've seen that. When the shots are hitting, we look good and we win games. But when that's not happening, and as we all know, when you get further into the year and into the playoffs, you're probably not going to have 120 to 110 games. Your defense is going to be what has to be.
Yep.
So that's something that they definitely need to address and get better at.
Now, before we get onto the Wildcats, Scott, I want to throw an interesting little dilemma at you, or to get your thoughts on something to do with the 36ers, and it's about Craig Randall. Should the 36ers persist with him? Because right now, the reigning MVP of the league is now out of a job and looking for a new home, Jalen Adams. To me, he looks like he would be an amazing fit on this 36ers team if they were willing to make that sort of a move. What do you think?
Well, you do know I get paid by the 36ers, don't you? You're not expecting me to that question. Look, it is an interesting one, and I think that you've seen the ups and downs that the entire team's had so far, and Randall is at his best is a game changer. And, but we've also seen, at times, they haven't looked at cohesive unit. Look, I would like them to, this is a team that we've sort of put on the floor. I don't know what happens behind the scenes, and I'm more than willing for other people to sort of, make those decisions. But it's got to be a tough one. I think, Jalen Adams, we saw what he could do last year. It's just incredible. But I'd be surprised if they make a move. I think CJ's got, has got the team that he wanted to put on the floor. And once again, it certainly is a work in progress. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anyone would tell you anything different. But I'd be surprised if they made a move at this stage.
In the bigger picture, should somebody make the move for Jalen? Does he belong back in the NBL somewhere if someone can make it work?
Absolutely, they does. If they could afford him. I mean, there's a lot of teams. I mean, there's probably every team would love to have him. No, unquestionably. And you know what you're getting too. And I think that's what I liked about the Sixers, picking up Cleveland and Franks this year is, you've seen them. They obviously settled into the country. They played at top level, and I like getting, something that you know what you're getting. So, absolutely. I'd be surprised if there's not teams that haven't reached out to him already. But I guess, price will come into play. But, all of a sudden, if he's, looking to get a job quickly in a league that he knows he does well in, I'd be surprised if there's not been multiple teams that have approached those.
Talk about the Perth Wildcats, Scott. You've always talked about how they always find a way. You're never willing to predict against them. You're never willing to bet against them because you've spent a lifetime in the NBL seeing them win and seeing them break your heart. But right now, they're in a hell of a hole, and I don't know if there's any easy fixes for them. They've lost 9 of their last 13 games at home. It's no longer a fortress at RAC Arena. They've lost 5 games in a row for the first time since 2005. And, they're in a world of hurt. What do you make of what's happening with your old rivals?
Well, like from the outside looking in, it does look like that they've got old quick. Like Mitch Norton's not the player he's been. Wagstaff's obviously getting on. Webster, hasn't been able to do what we know he can do on a regular basis, and so on. I think. Yeah, absolutely. I think they probably need to. I probably can say it about the Wildcats because I don't get paid by them, but I think they probably need to make a move import-wise. It just hasn't. As we know, it's just not happening at the moment. We know the Wildcats fans and faithful are used to success, and it's just not happening at the moment. And look, it's been a baptism of fire for my old running mate John Riley, and I'm sure he'd be nervous about, the way, the position they're in at the moment. But, hopefully they can get it back on track. The league's better when the Wildcats up and running. Let's just hope that it's next week, not tomorrow night.
I think, like we talked about on the show this week, Cody, that unless Brady Manick was able to do something remarkable this week, that we feel like they just have to make the move on him because they can't persist with him the way the team's struggling. And unfortunately, he didn't have a great game again last night. 8 points, only the 1 rebound. Played less than 14 minutes. There's probably not much more we need to say except that the move now seems inevitable. But you might have a good option that they might be able to look at, and it's a guy that Scott would be pretty familiar with.
Yeah, so, look, he obviously didn't have a great game last night, but, watching that second half, really the only time that I remember him being in was in that last 2 minutes when the game was pretty much already over. So, look, that's not a great sign. But just reading that Jacob Wiley has been released from his team. I think it was in Japan. So, look, I think a guy like that who is all about energy would be a perfect fit for them, and he's that perfect spot to take over. But, yeah, look, I think that would certainly be an option if they were looking to do something like that.
What do you remember of Jacob from his time in Adelaide, Scott?
Cody said the word energy. He's a guy that's up and about, is emotional. I think that's exactly the type of player that could give a real shot in the arm for the Wildcats. I'm not certain that he's the answer long term, over a number of years, but someone could come in and really give you a shot in the arm straight away, and has openly said that he wants to come back to Australia. I think that'd be a great situation. You're right; they just have to make a change, and it's a shame because we certainly expected better, but it just hasn't happened, and sometimes that's the case. But look, to only play 14 minutes is sort of indicative that you're probably not going to be around for much longer, unfortunately. But as we all know, that's the nature of the beast. That's what happens. It's it's a cutthroat sport, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Just touching on last night, Scott, with the Wildcats. I mean, they played pretty well for the first half, especially against the JackJumpers. Bryce Cotton obviously had a big first half, but he just couldn't keep it going. And again, probably they need Corey Webster and Todd Blanchfield to be their second and third scorers, really. And combined, they went for only 4 points last night, and they shot a combined 1 of 9 from the field. And again, they were out-rebounded badly. They lost the rebound count by 16, only had 5 offensive rebounds for the night. All those things just point to a lack of energy, don't they?
Oh, look, I'm stunned. I mean, it's just hard to believe it. And look, take nothing away from the JackJumpers because they came in and kicked our ass as well. But when you look at all you really need to do, actually, no, that was going to be too simplistic. I was going to say all you really need to do is match the JackJumpers for energy. It is more than that because they back each other up. They're so well drilled. Defensively, their show and recovers and rotations is, what you'd love to have a team could do, and the way they move the ball offensively. But once again, if you go through them player for player, there's not too many of those guys that would make the Adelaide 36ers or the Perth Wildcats. So it just shows you what you can do with, just a fierce desire, a belief in each other, and what you can do. But I can't just believe that. All those Wildcat guys are suddenly too old and can't play anymore. It just that's just not possible. Now, whether there's a couple of guys carrying injuries and Norton looks to me like he might be, but it's just too much to think that all of a sudden these 6 guys are washed up and can't play anymore. Like it's just something that's just not right. And once again, there's no excuse not to play hard. Like to come out. If you play hard and you lose, you can accept defeat. But when you're getting beaten in the effort areas, on a regular basis, it's then there's got to be questions. And to me, I know the coach is always going to get the blame, but the players got to have a look at themselves and just say, right, from now on, this next play we're not getting scored on. If someone drives down the lane, we're going to knock them on their ass and make them make free throws. There's got to be a line in the sand where you take some responsibility as a group and, make sure that you don't get beaten at home. And we've got beaten twice at home by the JackJumpers and the New Zealand Breakers, and it hasn't been close. And no one wants to see that at home, and it shouldn't happen. And I'd expect the Wildcats worry me tomorrow night because you got guys playing for their careers. You got you're digging yourself a hole. I'd expect them to come out really fired up tomorrow night.
It's very odd to see the Cats the way they are right now, and especially when when JR got appointed head coach at the start of the season, he preached defense, he preached rebounding, and they're 2 areas that they've just really, really struggled. Which, I mean, is all effort and desire, really. It's not a whole lot of skill involved in those 2 things. So, yeah, it's very odd to see a Cats team like this. But, look, I do expect them to come out firing, especially against you boys tomorrow, Scott. But that should be a cracker of a game.
It is. It's the effort areas. You're 100% right. And I think it's quite funny, and I can't take myself out of this equation. That John Riley and myself, who were such ruthless defenders, said nobody ever have been coaches who preach defence. I think it's certainly a matter of do as I say, not as what I used to do. But I honestly, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, it's hard to see Perth winning here tomorrow night. It's just on the Sixers should have too much firepower for them, and even though they're not. They're not firing in all cylinders. It's hard to see where Perth are going to get that win from. But as I said before, that goes out the window when the Wildcats play the Sixers. It is always a cracking game, And as I said, it's going to be a huge crowd, and everyone's very excited to see that rivalry continue.
I think the other thing working against the Wildcats is the fact that, the 36ers just need to play well at home. I mean, you talked about those two games. They lost to the JackJumpers by 25 points, and then last week to the Breakers by 29 points. Those have been two horrible performances at home. They just need to play well at home, and that is another reason why the Wildcats are going to find it really tough, because the 36ers are going to have plenty of motivation.
Well, you do. You're right. You've got to take care of home court. I mean, it's just got to be one of those non-negotiables. You win most of your games at home, and it makes it easier for you when you do have to travel. And I know the first year when I coached, I think we were something like 12-3 at home and 3-12 on the road. We were awful on the road, but taking care of your home court, you make the finals. It allows you for those down times, and it's been such a weird year across the whole NBL this year with away teams winning as much as what they had. But, once again, if you're fair dinkum, there's no excuse to, not playing at home. You get to shoot on those courts from time to time. You're at home. You sleep in your own bed. You just have to take care. I think if you're going to be a legitimate contender, you do need to win the majority of home games. So, once again, as I said, Adelaide have had a couple of stinkers here, and I'd expect that to change in tomorrow night, and hopefully going forward it's the same.
A big reason why I find it really hard to see any way for the Wildcats to win is that if Franks and Johnson are involved anywhere near the same degree they were against the Hawks, that they just can't stop them. I mean, Brady Manick has to match up on one of those two. Jesse Wagstaff has to guard one of those two, and I don't think they ever have a way to stop them. If you're Adelaide, you just have to get the ball to those two as much as you can.
Well, the beauty of those two is you've got two guys that can stretch the floor as well. Daniel Johnson, I think is probably, when you talk about big guys, quite possibly the best big guy shooter in NBL history. And I don't say that lightly. And, you can show up Daniel Kickett and obviously Anstey was a pretty handy perimeter shooter. But DJ's just been doing that for 15 years. And it just, and Franks obviously can shoot the ball as well, but it has to be an interior presence. And I think that's the key to any team. Got to establish yourself inside first, and that's what I liked about the game last night. Is as you said, they were looking for Frank every time down the floor, and the good teams, you need to establish an inside presence. And I go back to 100 years ago when I was playing the Southeast Melbourne Magic, and we had guys like Robert Rose and Darren Lucas and Bruce Bolden, and incredible players, and we won a championship, but we had a guy called John Dodge who was 7 foot, who averaged 10 points a game, but 8 of those points were in the first quarter. We just went to him. We went to him the first 3 or 4 plays just to establish that interior presence, and then it opens it up for your perimeter guys. So I love that Adelaide tried to do that last night, and I'm sure that'll be a fair topic of conversation about how they want to play the game tomorrow night as well.
Before we wrap it up, Scott, after all the pain that the Wildcats have inflicted on your 36ers over the years, how satisfying would it be tomorrow night to hand them a 6th straight loss and to heap some more pain on them?
Oh, look, I'm not bitter and twisted anymore, mate. It was 12 years ago since I got the sack for my head coaching role. I'm pretty good now. Look, I was actually disappointed the Wildcats didn't make the finals last year. And I know that people find that hard to believe, especially anyone that lives in Adelaide. But I just think they've just had such an incredible history of success and, had that streak 35 years or whatever it was. I just think it's astonishing, and they're a credit to themselves, and they're a benchmark for the whole competition. And I know when I was back before I started, when I was just a coach here, I used to speak to people in our organisation and just say, just do what the Wildcats do. Follow their template, go over and spend some days with them and just see what they do, because, they are contender every year. And I've actually been disappointed. And, like I said, I like JR, like he's played the championship with him back in 1998, and I want him to be successful. So, don't get me wrong, I want us to win tomorrow night. Really, I feel sorry that the way they're going, and hopefully they can turn around soon.
Any last thoughts for Scott, Cody?
No, man, I'm pretty much covered everything, I think.
No, very good. Thanks very much for joining us, Scott. We'll be back next week to chat to you about our Galen Award winner for the best team man. But more than anything, I think you're going to have a great time tomorrow night, so enjoy it.
No problems, boys. Thanks as usual, and catch up soon.
No, thanks, Cody.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll be back next week with another episode.